example of this is Netflix. So Netflix's app on Samsung TVs is different from the Netflix app that you might find on a Chromecast or an Apple TV. The Netflix app on Samsung TVs actually has cloud gaming built directly into it. And all of their games, you can only play using your mobile phone as a controller. And the way that they've built it is every Netflix game on the Samsung TVs, the controller input is different for each of their games. So they are designing the game to be perfectly aligned with the controller input. So yeah, they're taking a different approach.
That's I didn't think that they would have an app for that. That's really, there's an app for everything nowadays. That's cool. So we are all, I think it's interesting because I never thought of TV just being its own console. And you talk about, I think you spoke about how you are creating games for Samsung, but you are open to other platforms being brought to the TV as well. And we talked about this. What about people who play games on Steam, on PC, who might want to convert that over to, hey, I want to play on the couch instead of at my desk?
So that gets into couch play, which is, it's something that I'm super excited about. I think most people still think of their TV whenever they think about their house is, this is that campfire experience where everybody wants to hang out with their family and bond and collaborate in fun experiences. We are constantly trying to scour the planet for partnerships that we aren't already working with that can bring these type of couch play experiences. Netflix has a couple of those examples. Amazon has a couple examples. Jackbox Games is a great example as well. And so there are many companies that are out there trying to figure out how do we crack this experience so that Friday night is not everybody on their own device in a different room, all kind of doing their own thing. How do we get the family together to actually share in a very common experience? We're trying to enable that to the best of our ability. To your point, where we see that there's a gap in the marketplace that is not being served, we are investing our own money and our own resources and working with studios, and we're building and developing our own games to try to tackle some of these experiences. Mainly it's just a proof point, so we can just go to the publishing community and say, here's this thing that we just did and it really worked, you should do the same. So we are investing our own money in some of these things as well.
Wow, yeah, I mean, that leads perfectly to my next question, which was, why should these developers and producers come to Samsung specifically to work with you to bring their games to this platform, especially since you are offering this gaming experience at lower economic points?
I think from our perspective, another shift that we've seen in just is how gamers think of gaming versus anything else that is entertainment related. From a lot of our user research, from a lot of the studies, the younger audiences, they don't look at YouTube and Netflix and mobile games as different bespoke things. They look at this as just their entertainment ecosystem. How they spend their time, they're jumping in and out of all of these different unique experiences. Where Samsung fits in that's a little bit unique is that, especially when we think about transmedia, which is a very common topic, and there's a few sessions later this afternoon with some Hollywood folks talking about the convergence of media and traditional games. From my perspective, we work with all of the streamers. We work with all of the major platforms in terms of game publishers, but people are still thinking about these things as bespoke, different experiences. But we own the TV. Whenever you first turn on that experience, we curate all of this content together. So we were kind of talking just earlier about this. We just did this actually a few weeks ago for May the 4th with Star Wars, where we were promoting Star Wars movies available via Disney Plus right next to the Star Wars games that you can play via Amazon Luna or Black Nut. We did the exact same thing for Indiana Jones. And so Indiana Jones, whenever the movie or whenever the latest game came out, The Great Circle, on Xbox, we had it right next curated to this row of content. And these were some of the most engaged pieces of content that we saw for the weeks that we ran these campaigns. So again, I think consumers don't look at this as like, oh, I'm ready to game, or now I'm ready to watch a movie. They just look at it as, how can I just fill my time with entertainment? And we're trying to blur those lines as much as possible and make it as accessible as possible. Yeah.
We do have about 5-ish minutes left in this session, unless we have an extension, but we did want to open it up for questions, just because I feel like I've been asking a lot and I've talked to him already. So if anyone has questions, please feel free to ask. Yes?
Do you get any resistance from other consoles aside from Xbox in integrating into Samsung TV?
the question for anybody that didn't hear it is there any resistance that we get from other consoles not integrating with Samsung? I wouldn't necessarily say resistance as much as it is prioritization. I think for us, the example of what we've done with Xbox is pretty profound, and it's hard to ignore that. I think for a lot of companies, if you're a Nintendo, if you're a PlayStation, you just may have other priorities that you're trying to get to, like launching the next Switch 2. But we have great relationships with a lot of these companies. So, for the next big Sony game that comes out, they're going to spend a lot of money on advertising. And so I think it makes sense if they're spending money in general on advertising, you would most likely think that they're going to advertise with Samsung, being the biggest TV maker. So we have relationships with all of these, console companies in one way or another. It's just how do we find the right capabilities, the right integrations to make some of these things more accessible. So nothing yet to announce, but excited about the future. Good question. Yeah, great question. So have we considered shipping a controller with the TV? So we do actually make a Samsung controller. It's a PDP controller that's available to purchase separately. I would love to throw that in the box with everything else, but as you can imagine, the hardware costs of all of the individual parts that go into a TV, they are looking at it on a spreadsheet with a fine-tooth comb going, how do we reduce the cost? How do we make this TV cheaper? So even if something costs a few cents more, they're like, ugh. So a controller, when you look at the hardware manufacturing costs, it's pretty prohibitive. I would say that we're exploring, and we've done some of these tests in the past where we've partnered up with Xbox, and we've done this in Canada, and we've done this in other regions as well, where we've said, can we figure out a way that we can get a controller in the hand of consumers? And those were pretty successful, and so I wouldn't be surprised if we do that again in the future, because it still remains to be a big challenge in the industry of, I have this TV, I don't know that I can actually game on it, and so getting a controller in their hands could be an easy way to do that. If you want to fund it, we should talk after. Question over here.
So with like Project Wuhan and like the XR headsets, like
Yeah.
in terms of like next generation of gamers, like how are you hoping people are going to be using those devices and engaging with content on there?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the question, if you haven't heard it, was Project Muhan, which for anybody that isn't aware of that, it is a new headset device that is a virtual reality headset device that Samsung is doing in partnership with Google. And so Google was going to be the operating system of that, called Android XR. And it should be shipping this year. And there's a lot of excitement around it. So again, I mentioned prior to Samsung, I was at Disney, and my team was a part of the Disney Plus team that worked on the Apple Vision Pro app. And so I have a deep, close part in my heart of XR experiences and what that looks like. And so I think for a lot of us, we're trying to figure out, where do we cross the chasm between these experiences? When does it make sense to blend the TV experience with the headset? My personal feeling is that with these headsets, it can feel a little bit more restrictive. It's not communal anymore. It's not everybody watching what we're watching. It's I'm just watching what I'm watching. And so how do we leverage the big screen in the house to kind of project those type of experiences? So I think you're going to see a lot of those things in the future. But I would love to figure out ways that you could start to explore that. We talked about couch play and those experiences in the family room. How can I make it an immersive experience for one person, but everybody else is still playing as well? I think we're going to see a lot of those different form factor games that are going to start to come to market. Yeah, so the question is there an easy route for indie games to come to Samsung? There is. So there's a couple different pathways. One pathway is Tizen is the operating system that all Samsung TVs have, and so anybody can create a Tizen app today. You could go download the SDK, build an app, and you can ship it whenever you're ready. The other pathway is just working through a lot of our partners. So again, between all of the sea of cloud providers that we work with, there is a good chance that you can get your game built on some of these systems. Personally, there's a lot that we have a curation team that is looking at all of the games that are trending across all of our game platforms, and they are trying to to flash a spotlight on these unique games. And so we are constantly highlighting really unique games from incredible developers that have great backgrounds, great stories. We're constantly leaning into cultural moments, or if there's certain big key events that are happening in space, it's Hispanic Heritage Month, and so let's start to showcase some games that are built by Hispanic founders. You know, we're doing a lot of those things. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to get your game onto the Samsung platform, and then to build a relationship with our team so that we can find a way that we can elevate your game. Yeah.
Do you see Samsung kind of adopting those dual screen TVs similar to what Telly has shipped? And if so, do you think those kinds of multi-screen, experiences can be leveraged in the gaming space, whether it be during ad breaks or whether it be while the content is going on the screen?
So in the question, if I understand it correctly, is Telly. So that is like I don't even, because they created their own form factor, right? It's like it's as wide as the TV, but it's only maybe like 8 inches tall. It almost kind of feels like a separate, ad unit for the TV. We haven't looked into that integration, but I think it's interesting. I mean, I think the second screen is certainly a powerful experience. I saw it at Disney with a lot of our user research. We see it at Samsung as well. I look at market research all the time. I think the estimates are anywhere from 70 to 90% of people that are watching TV are watching TV with something in their hand, and they're doom scrolling. And so we know that they're not actually focused on what's up there. At Disney, with a lot of our conversations that we would have at the studio heads, that's why they love theater so much, because it forced the consumer to watch the actual movie instead of being distracted from these other things. So I think when you carefully orchestrate these second screen devices to make them not feel like as an extension, but almost a part of this game experience, I think you can get into some really cool experiences. We even talked about the mobile phone as that controller input. And right now, those game mechanics are kind of bare bones. They're just up, down, left, right, and a couple keystrokes. I think what we're going to see is something similar to what we were talking about out there, which is Astrobot. The way that PlayStation was able to take this controller mechanism and really build it to work in concert with the game experience. You're blowing into the controller, you're navigating it like it's a flight pad. They're doing all sorts of cool things. I think we're going to see a lot of those second screen devices that kind of make some of these things that storytellers and game creators haven't even started to imagine yet. So I would love that. Yeah.
I think we are up on time, right? Yes. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.